What's up, everybody? Matt Kajeski here, back again with the Stokastic Fantasy Football YouTube channel. And today we are going to be talking about some quarterbacks with some red flags ahead of the 2022 NFL Fantasy Football season. Before we get started, make sure to hit that thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you know when this and all other content goes live. We're also brought to you today by Underdog Fantasy. And if you've never heard of Underdog, they are the single best place to play fantasy football in the summer months. Basketball Mania 3 is already underway. That is a tournament with $10 million in total prizes. All you have to do is draft your team, and that's it. There's no trades, no waivers, no in-season management. All you have to do is draft your team, and Underdog is going to give you your best score every single week, and then the highest score at the end of the year wins. Last year's Best Ball Mania championship team was drafted in June, so there is no time to wait. Underdog also doubles your first deposit up to $100 when you use the promo code AWESOMO. That's good for 4 entries into Best Ball Mania 3. Head to UnderdogFantasy.com, go to the App Store, or click the link in the video description below to take advantage of that free $100 with the promo code AWESOMO. All right, let's get into this. We are going to talk some quarterbacks with red flags. And no, I'm not going to tell you about some of the late round guys. Anyone can get up here and tell you Tua Tagovailoa hasn't been efficient to this point in his career. Deshaun Watson might get suspended, or Jared Goff has been a career checkdown artist. We're going to get into the nitty gritty, talk about some quarterbacks within the draftable range that do have some red flags. And where I want to start is with Joe Burrow. Now, Joe Burrow, I think, is a fantastic player. And that's actually the case with most of the players we're going to talk about today. It comes down to his ADP. On Underdog Fantasy, he's the QB7. That's an average draft position of 71.2. For reference, he's coming off the board less than 10 picks after Jalen Hurts. He's coming off the board ahead of Russell Wilson, ahead of Trey Lance, ahead of Tom Brady, Dak Prescott, Matthew Stafford. Some really good players are coming off the board ahead of Joe Burrow. So it comes down to, I would rather wait a little bit and take a quarterback that I view as having a similar upside to Burrow. When you look at Joe Burrow overall, this guy had an absolutely historic season overall. He averaged 288 passing yards per game on just 35 and a half attempts, which is ridiculous. Third in passing yards per game, 17th in attempts. You look at his average yards per attempt, 9.0. That was first in the NFL. This is his completion percentage, 70.4%, first in the NFL. These are stats that are going to regress, and Joe Burrow can still be a phenomenal player and not live up to expectations because of this regression. Even if you want to look at him compared to a player like Patrick Mahomes has never had a statistical season anywhere near that efficiency in his entire career. And we're talking about MVP level Patrick Mahomes. There also is the concerns with the overall offense. A player like Tom Brady going behind him, his offense has been near the top of the league in pass rate and plays per game in his career. And now you look at Joe Burrow. Last year, Cincinnati was 24th in plays per game and 13th in pass rate. Now, those numbers aren't terrible, but again, if you can take a similar player like Tom Brady that maybe has an offense that's a little more up-tempo and faster later, you can sign me up for that. So love Joe Burrow as a player. Do not love the ADP. 71.2 is a little too rich for my blood. I'm going to pass and take some of the players behind him. Another guy I want to talk about here is having some red flags is Green Bay Packers signal caller Aaron Rodgers. First of all, he's losing Devontae Adams, so his most efficient weapon on offense. There's a lot of question marks in his receiving core. You're looking at players like Allen Lazard, and then you have Sammy Watkins, who may or may not make the team. You have Christian Watson, an FCS rookie who was drafted early on day 2, but still widely unproven. Rodgers is also in an offense that was already slow to begin with. Last year, they were 18th in pace, and they were 17th in pass rate. All their moves this offseason suggest that the Packers could regress even further in terms of pass rate and pace of play, which is going to hurt Rodgers, who's not mobile whatsoever. At least with a guy like Joe Burrow, you have some scramble ability. With Aaron Rodgers, you're basically looking at a pure pocket passer at this point in his career. Now, Rodgers is still efficient. His average yards per attempt was second behind only Joe Burrow. His completion percentage was third, also behind Joe Burrow. But again, Aaron Rodgers is a player that's played at an MVP level routinely. So to me, this comes down to volume and his inability to run. When I look at some of the players behind him, like a Kirk Cousins, or players going in his range, like a Stafford or a Derek Carr, I would rather take the upside with some of those players due to their offensive environments and perceived ability to at least see a ceiling in pass rate and pace of play. The last player I'm going to talk about here is still unproven widely, but he's being drafted pretty high compared to, I think, overall offensive expectations. It's Justin Fields of the Chicago Bears, QB 16 on an underdog, ADP of 125.1. I think Justin Fields is this tantalizing prospect because of the perceived ability to run. Now, he is a good athlete. He rushed for 420 yards last year. But I think there's kind of a flaw in this logic because Justin Fields has never been a run-first quarterback. If you look at his career with Ohio State in 3 years, he never had more than 484 rushing yards in any season. So yes, there is the mobility, but he still is a downfield passer first and foremost, and that's what he's going to look to do. Then you look at his surrounding cast. I mean, Darnell Mooney is your wide receiver 1 and completely unsettled wide receiver 2. I mean, they just trade for N'Keal Harry, but you're talking about Velus Jones, who's a 25-year-old prospect, Byron Pringle, a guy who comes over for Kansas City, who's only played in a rotational role. It's going to be tough for Fields, not to mention the offensive line is legitimately the worst offensive line in the entire NFL. You're looking at fifth-round rookies potentially starting. Dakota Dozier, a perceived starting guard for this team, is already out for the season. It's a tough look for the Chicago Bears, and even if Fields does use that mobility, it's hard for me to see him putting up ceilings on a week-to-week basis just because of the poor offensive line he's going to be playing behind and the lack of skill position players around him. So even as QB 16 ADP of 125.1, I'm not sure I can get behind Fields due to the lack of a ceiling. But that'll do it for us today. Let me know who you think might be quarterbacks with red flags in the draftable positions. My name is Matt Gajeski on Twitter at Matt_Gajeski. Thank you for watching, and we will see you again next time.